Hello, Malma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. On tonight's headlines. U.S.-Chinese relations already tense over the coronavirus pandemic, and Beijing's crackdown in Hong Kong deteriorated once again as Washington ordered the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston within 72 hours. And Europe's virus cases soar past 3 million. Masks are essential but insufficient in bringing down a wave of the new coronavirus infections, according to Dr. Gabriel Leung, the Dean of Hong Kong University's Medical School. And China launches a rover to Mars on a journey coinciding with a similar U.S. mission as the powers take their rivalry into deep space. U.S.-Chinese relations, already tense over the coronavirus pandemic and Beijing's crackdown in Hong Kong, deteriorated once again as Washington ordered the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston within 72 hours. China slammed the U.S. move, which came one day after the unveiling of a U.S. indictment targeting 2 Chinese nationals for allegedly hacking hundreds of companies worldwide and seeking to steal virus vaccine research. President Trump threatened more consulate closures, telling reporters it's always possible. Let's listen in.
As far as closing additional embassies, it's always possible. You see what's going on. We thought there was a fire in the one that we did close, and everybody said there's a fire, and I guess they were burning documents or burning papers, and I wonder what that's all about.
President Trump has said enough. We're not going to allow this to continue to happen. You've seen the remarks that National Security Advisor O'Brien gave, that FBI Director Wray gave, and that Attorney General Barr has given. We are setting out clear expectations for how the Chinese Communist Party is going to behave, and when they don't, we're going to take actions that protect the American people, protect our security, our national security, and also protect our economy and jobs. That's the actions that you're seeing taken by President Trump.
The closure of the Chinese diplomatic installation in one of America's biggest cities marks a dramatic escalation in tensions between the world's top 2 economies. Washington and Beijing are feuding over a slew of issues ranging from trade to the pandemic to China's policy in Hong Kong, Xinjiang, and even the South China Sea. State Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortagus said the consulate was ordered shut in order to protect American intellectual property and Americans' private information. The State Department said China has engaged in massive spying and influence operations throughout the United States for years. In Beijing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said the order to close the consulate was an outrageous and unjustified move which will sabotage China-U.S. relations. Take a look.
北方称中国驻休斯敦总领馆从事与身份不符的活动，这完全是恶意的污蔑。美方要求中方关闭驻休斯敦总领馆，严重违反国际法和国际关系基本原则，严重违反中美领事条约的有关规定，严重破坏中美关系。这是在拆中美两国人民。
China continues hitting back at the U.S. government's order to close its Houston consulate and also said that it is considering not recognizing British national overseas or BNO passports as valid travel documents after the United Kingdom announced further details on a pathway to citizenship for some Hong Kong residents. China has moved to block the UK offer of citizenship to Hong Kong residents, warning it may not recognize their passports as valid documents. Take a look.
北方称中国驻休斯敦总领馆从事与身份不符的活动，这完全是恶意的污蔑。美方要求中方 关闭驻休斯敦总领馆，严重违反国际法。
In disregard of China's solemn representations, the UK went ahead with its political manipulation over the BNO passport issue, openly breaching its commitment as well as international law and basic norms governing international relations, and blatantly interfering in China's Hong Kong affairs. China firmly opposes this. Given that the British side broke its commitment first, the Chinese side will consider stopping recognizing BNO passports as valid travel documents and reserves the right to take further actions.
Meanwhile, British lawmakers slammed the government for failing to look into possible Russian meddling in UK politics, particularly the divisive 2016 Brexit referendum, as they released a long-awaited report into the issue. The report said it couldn't point to specific evidence of Russian meddling in the 2016 vote on Britain's EU membership and a 2014 poll on Scotland's independence from the UK, which the no camp won by 55% to 45%. But Kevin Jones, MP, Intelligence Committee member, said this happened because the UK government actively avoided asking the question. Take a look.
But in our opinion, the UK government took its eye off the ball because of its focus on counter-terrorism. The government had badly underestimated the response required to the Russian threat and is still playing catch-up. The evidence which the government provided said they had not seen any successful interference in the UK democratic process or any activities that has led to impact on elections, for example, results. However, the scandal is the reason for that is because no one had actually sought that. There was no investigation. So they can make that statement without any, but no attempt was made to look at it. So it's a pretty hollow statement.
Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab rejected the claims that the government had actively sought not to delve deeper into the perceived threat of Russian interference. He said we've got a long period recognizing the enduring significant threat posed by Russia to the UK, including in cyber, and Russia is a top national security priority. In a separate 20-page response, the government also said there was no evidence of successful interference in the EU referendum and denied acting too slowly on the threat. British Minister of State for Security at the Home Office, James Brockenshire, said in a statement to Parliament that the UK categorically rejects any suggestion that the country has avoided investigating Russia. Let's listen in.
This government will not tolerate any foreign interference in the running of our sovereign state. We have long recognised the threat posed by the Russian state, including from conventional military capabilities, espionage, cyber attacks, covert interference, and illicit finance. We have been clear that Russia must desist from its attacks on the UK and our allies, and we've been resolute in defending our country, our democracy, and our values. And we categorically reject any suggestion that the UK actively avoided investigating Russia. The rules on investment visas have already been tightened, but we will continue to consider whether any further changes are required to ensure that it cannot be abused. Let there be no doubt, we are unafraid to act wherever necessary to protect the UK and our allies from any state threat.
The report published by the UK's Intelligence and Security Committee said that Russia is a highly capable cyber actor employing organized crime groups to supplement its cyber skills. Russia carries out malicious cyber activity in order to assert itself aggressively, for example, attempting to interfere in other countries' elections. And the report comes at a period of high tension between Russia and the West. Last Thursday, the US, UK, and Canada accused Russia of trying to steal information and research on potential coronavirus vaccines in development from academic and pharmaceutical bodies. Now, Russia denied the allegations, with the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov telling TASS news agency that, quote, Russia has nothing to do with these attempts. We do not accept such accusations for the latest groundless allegations of interference in 2019 elections. Meanwhile, analyst Keir Giles of the Chatham House think tank said that the UK government has scored a political own goal by delaying the publication of a Parliamentary Intelligence Committee report on Russia, and that the most surprising thing the report reveals is how little the UK has investigated possible Russian election interference. Take a look.
Instead, the real surprise was the big gaping hole in the report, the fact that interference in democratic processes in the UK by Russia simply had not been investigated by the government or the intelligence services. That was the real surprise for people who thought they might possibly find hard evidence of Russian interference in, for example, the Brexit referendum. There is plenty of food for conspiracy theorists here. The fact that a government that did not wish the results of the Brexit referendum to be challenged, or indeed the Scottish independence referendum to be challenged, would obviously not want anybody to look too closely at how that result was arrived at. And of course, the government hasn't helped itself by preventing publication of this report for so long. Even if there was no conspiracy, they've certainly made it look like one. We don't at the moment know whether there was a deliberate policy within government of holding onto this report for as long as possible instead of simply stringing out the procedural reasons why it shouldn't be released. But whatever has happened, this is an own goal by the government. They have made it look as though there was deliberate suppression of the report, which can't have been the intended result. Because at present, it is not illegal to undertake actions on behalf of a hostile state against the UK, unless, of course, you do actually manage to carry off a successful feat of espionage. So working as a foreign agent on behalf of Russia against the UK is actually perfectly legal.
In other news, more than 3 million cases of the coronavirus have been reported in Europe, more than half of them in Russia, Britain, Spain, and Italy, according to an AFP tally today. Europe has registered 3,002,861 infections out of a global total of 15,237,784. The continent remains the hardest hit in terms of deaths, with 206,633 out of 626,994 worldwide. Russia recorded the highest number of cases in the continent at 795,038, including 12,892 deaths, followed by Britain, 296,377 cases and 45,501 deaths, and Spain, 267,551 and 28,426 deaths, and Italy, 245,632 cases, 245,032 cases, and 35,082 deaths. Now, the figures of detected infections likely reflect only a portion of the actual number of cases. And going back to Britain, Britain's world-leading theater industry faces mass redundancies and venue closures because of the pandemic. Now let's get an update from Aribel Celestino. Hello, Aribel.
Hi, Alma. And yes, here's our report from the UK. Wording over UK theater closures due to coronavirus lockdown. Britain's world-leading theater industry faces mass redundancies and venue closures because of the effect of the coronavirus lockdown, lawmakers said on Thursday. Parliament's Digital Culture, Media and Sports DCMS committee said in a new report that more than 15,000 theatrical performances were cancelled in the first 12 weeks of shutdown from March 23. More than £303 million, which corresponds to $386 million or 333 million euros in box office revenue was lost. But when additional income was factored in, losses could be £603 million. We are witnessing the biggest threat to our cultural landscape in a generation, the committee said. The failure of the government to act quickly has jeopardized the future of institutions that are part of our national life and the livelihoods of those who work for them. The government earlier this month announced £1.57 billion in emergency funding for the creative industries after weeks of pressure, but while widely welcomed, there remains concern that the money will not go far enough, specifically if social distancing guidelines are maintained through the popular Christmas period, which is normally a money spinner, and into the next year. Britain is home to nearly 1,100 theaters, more than half of which operate as charities. The Theatre Trust, a representative body, said that more than half of its members had less than 3 months financial reserves, and just over a third had a cash safety net for just 1 month. Julianne Bird, chief executive of UK Theatre and the Society of London Theatre, said 70% of theatres and production companies risk to fail before the end of the year. Shakespeare's Globe in London has warned it faces insolvency without emergency government funding and job protection programs. Several provincial theatres have already closed. This erosion of cultural infrastructure could have long-lasting impact on access to the arts, careers in the creative sectors, and the UK's position as a world leader in this sector and as a major contributor to tourism, the committee said. Leading figures in the arts have previously warned of mass redundancies and widespread closures as theatrical staff being self-employed. The committee called for an extension to the government's furlough scheme, which is due to the end in October. Wider financial support, including tax breaks and better guidance on reopening. Social distancing guidelines could see theaters only a third full, prompting calls for the use of technology and regular testing of staff to allow a safe return of audiences. The committee highlighted similar concerns about the shutdown's impact on live and festivals, most of which have been canceled due to the outbreak. The Music Venue Trust estimated that 93% of grassroots music venues face permanent closures because of lack of income, which meant they cannot pay rents. The National Arenas Association said that the 23 UK arenas it represents will lose almost £235 million worth of ticket sales in over a 6-month period. And the Association of British Orchestras also warned UK orchestras face up to a year of lost income because of touring cancellations and restrictions on audience numbers. Back to you, Alma.
All right. I still can't see you, Aribel. Are you there? I can hear you, but I can't see you.
My connection is really weak right now.
Okay. So, Aribel, how are you doing? How is London? Are you able to go out now? Are you able to work? School?
I just finished school, and yes, people are able to go out more, but still following the government's guidelines.
Is masks mandatory in London?
Mask will be mandatory from July 24.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Aribel, for your report there in the United Kingdom. Keep it coming. Keep the updates coming. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you so much for having me, reporting from the United Kingdom. I am Aribel Celestino, and we live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, masks are essential but insufficient in bringing down a wave of the new coronavirus infections. That is according to Dr. Gabriel Leung, the Dean of Hong Kong University's Medical School. Let's listen in.
And so masks are really necessary, but they're insufficient especially to bring down a particular wave of acute infections. That's why we have implemented all these additional physical distancing measures to try and bring it under control. I think that the current so-called third wave is the result of the progressive relaxation of the physical distancing measures, as well as probably a few potential loopholes in our border restrictions, specifically probably the exemptions that went into Hong Kong or that had come into Hong Kong without testing. I think it's combined with the progressive relaxation of physical distancing and then some high-risk venues like fairly crowded so-called TANDAAN, small restaurants, particularly frequented by some groups like taxi drivers who might have been infected by some of these exempted air or ship crew. I don't think that any place, Hong Kong or elsewhere, would be able to keep virus-free until when we have a safe, effective, and widely accessible vaccine, and that probably will take another 9, maybe 12 months numbers. So I think that we are doing the right things, and I think that we're probably doing enough for the moment, but we just need to have patience and keep it up for the next several weeks.
Hong Kong reported 113 new coronavirus infections on Wednesday, a new daily record as a sudden surge in cases shows no signs of slowing despite ramped-up social distancing rules. Infections have spiked again this month, and doctors say a new outbreak is spreading out of control in the densely packed territory of 7.5 million people. Health officials have also ordered people to wear masks on transport from Thursday in all public indoor venues. More than 800 infections had been confirmed in the last fortnight alone, more than a third since the virus hit the city. Only 8 of the 113 new cases reported on Wednesday were imported, meaning the rest have been contracted locally. Officials were unable to identify the transmission source in 60% of cases, meaning the disease is still spreading. And anyone venturing out in Australia's second biggest city was ordered to wear a mask as authorities struggle to contain multiple coronavirus clusters in the country's southeast. Take a look.
Yeah, it's really unusual to see. Like, I live out in the country and people still wear masks, and it's just not normal to what we normally used to.
Like maybe like a few months ago, when you wear the mask on the street, people kind of like stare at you like, oh, you are wearing mask, like, are you sick, something like that?
Go to stage 4 or stage 5 even, whatever is necessary to just eliminate the thing and go back to, well, what's left of our normal lives. I can see two people over there who aren't wearing masks, but overall it's looking good, yeah.
Victoria State, of which Melbourne is the capital, recorded 422 coronavirus cases on Thursday, a dip from a record peak of 484 on Wednesday, but its 18th consecutive day of triple-digit rises. The mandatory mask order allows police to issue fines of 200 Australian dollars or 140 US dollars to anyone who refuses to cover their face in public. Although previous lockdown rules have generally been enforced with warnings, the state's leader said the lockdown restrictions had helped stabilize infection numbers, but the next step was driving them down. State of emergency in Victoria extended until August 16. Victoria has effectively been sealed off from the rest of the country in an effort to contain the virus. But new cases have been detected in neighboring New South Wales, sparking tighter restrictions in its capital, Sydney. Australia has now recorded more than 13,300 cases of the virus and 133 fatalities among its population of about 25 million. The mayor of Washington tightened rules for wearing masks in the U.S. Capitol, ordering city residents to don face coverings as soon as they leave their home. Take a look. All right, we'll take a short break. Eagle News, we'll be right back.
Tomorrow, I love ya. Tomorrow, you're always a day away.
Malaking parte ng pamumuhay namin ang agrikultura. Sa mother side ko, ang kanilang kalakal ay animal husbandry. Sila po ay nag-aalaga ng mga baka. Magmula po sa Pangasinan, napunta po ng Nueva Ecija. Ang father side ko naman po, mula po sa Spain, pagdating nila dito sa Pilipinas, sila po yung tinatawag na uring may lupa. Talagang nabuhay po kami, ibinuhay po sa amin ang agrikultura. Mga mahal kong kababayan, ito po si Robin Padilla. Inaanyayahan ko po kayong manood ng Unlad, Kaagapay sa Hanap Buhay. Dito po sa Net 25.
May kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Turuan din natin ang mga bata ng tamang paghugas ng mga kamay. Basain ang kamay ng tubig at lagyan ng sabon. Kuskusin ang iyong mga palad. Gayon din ang pagitan ng mga daliri. Pati na ang likod ng mga palad at daliri. Ganon din ang iyong hinlalaki. Kasama ang mga dulo ng iyong mga daliri. Pagkatapos ay iyong palapulsuhan. Gawin ito ng kahit 20 segundo. Pagkatapos ay banlawan ng tubig at patuyuin.
Welcome back. The mayor of Washington tightened rules for wearing masks in the U.S. Capitol, ordering city residents to don face coverings as soon as they leave their homes. Take a look.
At food establishment. I am also today signing a new mayor's order on masks. And basically what it says is if you leave home, you should wear a mask. The mayor's order lays out some exceptions. Common ones are for children under the age of 3, if you're vigorously exercising, if you are actively eating or drinking, or if you're in an enclosed office alone and no one else will be coming in. But in most cases, if you're outside of your house, you should have a mask on.
In Washington, as in a majority of U.S. states, the number of COVID-19 cases is starting to climb, even though the capital city has been largely spared from the coronavirus since the start of the pandemic.
Cut out to...
France introduced fines for failure to wear masks in public indoors. It's possible to make a cloth face covering at home thanks to this. Take a look.
Because it's extremely contagious, some scientists believe the new coronavirus can be transmitted when a person speaks or exhales, even when he or she is experiencing no apparent symptoms. Therefore, the general public are now advised in some countries to cover their faces with a bandana, a scarf, or a homemade cloth face covering. Surgical masks and ventilator masks are reserved for medical staff or infected people because of shortages. It's possible to make a cloth face covering at home. Cut out two 25 by 15 centimetre rectangles of tightly woven cotton, such as quilting fabric. A t-shirt will also do. Place one rectangle on top of the other. Fold the long sides of the fabric over by about ½ centimetre and form a hem. Then fold the fabric over by about 1 centimetre along the short sides and stitch down. Train a 15 centimetre length of elastic through the wider hem on each side. These will be the ear loops. Knot the two ends of the elastic. If you've no elastic, you can use an elastic band or a string, but cut the string longer so that you can tie the mask at the back of your head. Gently tuck the knots inside the hem. Gather the sides of the mask on the elastic to make sure it fits snugly. Then stitch the elastic in place. This will keep it from slipping. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth when removing the mask. Wash your hands. Face coverings should be washed regularly in a washing machine.
Australia's last Boeing 747 departed Sydney after a ceremony marking the model's nearly 5 decades of flying for the national carrier Qantas. The model's retirement was brought forward after the coronavirus pandemic crippled the global travel. Take a look.
It will be a bittersweet moment when the aircraft leave. It will be bittersweet because of that amazing history, because of what this aircraft has done to change the aviation industry, what it's done to change Qantas, what it's done to change Australia. The crew told me when we met them off the aircraft, it felt like you were taking your elderly parents, your grandparents, or your kids, and you were rescuing them from those terrible areas that needed to come back.
Plane spotters and veteran pilots gathered to bid farewell to the national carrier's last Boeing 747 as it headed from Australia to retirement in a desert in the United States. The jumbo jet lifted off from Sydney Airport, bound first for Los Angeles before its final destination in the Mojave Desert, ending the model's nearly 5 decades of flying for Qantas. It was an early retirement for the 747, which was originally slated to go out of service in 6 months. But the chaos wreaked on the travel industry by the coronavirus pandemic brought the date forward. Last week, British Airways retired its entire fleet of Boeing 747 jumbo jets as part of an industry-wide effort to slash costs and turn to greener aircraft. In other news, EU chiefs Charles Michel and Ursula von der Leyen defended the agreement hammered out in an EU summit early this week on a virus recovery fund and the bloc's long-term budget, together worth 1.8 trillion euros. The deal painstakingly reached means cuts to the EU's budget in some areas, in part because of the gap caused by Brexit, sparking dissatisfaction among MEPs who have yet to vote to adopt the agreement. Take a look.
In less than 2 months, we hammered out a deal of more than 1.8 trillion euros. And this response is massive compared to the size of its economy. Europe's response is greater than that of the United States or China.
I started by saying that the European Council's agreement provided the light at the end of the tunnel. But with light also comes shadow. And in this case, the shadow is in the form of a very lean long-term EU budget. Before we even started, this budget had a hole of around 70 billion euros because of Brexit, with one big member state less contributing. Good news is that we have managed to plug almost all of that gap. That means that every country has to pay more.
And yes, there are a lot of points where we have to criticize. And Ursula, we are for the moment not ready to swallow the bitter pill you referred to. That is especially the MFF. On the MFF, We think that it is not giving proper answers to the challenges of the next 7 years.
The European Parliament is expected to vote on the EU's long-term budget of 1,074 billion euros by the end of the year. However, it does not have a vote on the 750 billion euro post-coronavirus recovery plan. Though it's closely linked to the EU budget, the deal was sealed by EU leaders after intense negotiations that saw threats of walkouts, vetoes, and fierce opposition from the Netherlands and Austria. Germany and France strongly backed the package, which enables joint borrowing by the 27 members of the bloc to help virus-hit countries, particularly Spain and Italy. To other news now. The mayor of Portland was tear-gassed on Wednesday night as he met with demonstrators protesting against police brutality and the deployment of federal troops into U.S. cities ordered by President Trump. Take a look.
This rampage of violence
Right back. Eagle News will be right back.
Tomorrow, tomorrow, I love ya. Tomorrow, you're always a day away.
Protektahan ang sarili laban sa coronavirus disease o COVID-19.
Narito ang ilang paalala.
Takpan ang ilong at bibig sa tuwing babahing at uubo. Gamitin ang looban ng siko. Kung gagamit naman ng tissue, ay tiyaking maitapon ito agad sa tamang basurahan. Iwasang hawakan ang ilong o bibig. Ugaliing maghugas ng mga kamay gamit ang sabon at umaagos na tubig o magpahid ng alcohol-based sanitizer.
Gumamit ng face mask kung ikaw ay may ubot sipon. O kaya naman ay may inaalaga ang pasyente na mayroong simptomas ng respiratory illness. Itapon ng gamit na face mask sa tamang basurahan.
Sundin ang social distancing. Panatilihin ang 1 metrong layo mula sa ibang tao. Lalo na kapag nasa labas ng bahay. Kung maaari ay umiwas muna sa mga matataong lugar.
Laging tandaan, mahalaga ang kalinisan upang sakit ay maiwasan.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced he was deploying more federal agents to Chicago and other major cities to help battle a jump in gun violence and shooting deaths. The move came a day after 15 people in Chicago, the country's third largest city, were wounded in a drive-by shooting at a funeral for a man recently gunned down in what police called gang violence. Take a look.
This rampage of violence shocks the conscience of our nation, and we will not stand by and watch it happen. Can't do that. The citizens of Chicago are citizens of America, and they have the same right as every other American to live in safety, dignity, and peace. No mother should ever have to cradle her dead child in her arms simply because politicians refuse to do what is necessary to secure their neighborhood and to secure their city. This afternoon, I'm also announcing that the Department of Justice will provide more than $61 million in grants to hire hundreds of new police officers in cities that are the focus of Operation Legend. We will never defund the police. We will hire more great police. We want to make law enforcement stronger, not weaker. What cities are doing is absolute insanity. Many of the same politicians who want to slash resources for law enforcement have also declared that their cities are sanctuaries for criminal illegal aliens.
But officials made clear that the government was not sending paramilitary forces to address the protests, as it has a deeply controversial move in Portland, Oregon. Shootings have spiked in a number of U.S. cities this summer. Chicago has suffered about 1,640 shootings and 414 murders this year, according to police data. Both figures are up around 50% from a year ago. Officials blame frustration and economic pains from the COVID-19 crisis, stepped gang rivalries, and easy access to guns. New York shootings are also running at their highest levels in over a decade, and many other urban areas are facing similar challenges. Shootings have accelerated during the summer across the country. More than 60 people were shot in Chicago, including 14 fatalities over the past weekend alone. Meanwhile, the mayor of Chicago, in reaction to President Trump's announcement, let's listen in.
I've been very clear, not happening in Chicago. We don't need federal troops. We don't need unnamed secret federal agents roaming around the streets of Chicago. That's not democracy that we saw unfolding on the streets of Portland as a result of this federal action. That's what we call tyranny and dictatorship. And we are not having it in Chicago.
I think that the time and the resources could be better spent in addressing the pandemic that affects all of us across the world. So I just think it's just a deflection, and it's unfortunate.
It's violence begets more violence. It's just a chain that will just repeatedly continue.
To other news now, Bolivian police said they recovered more than 400 bodies from streets and homes over a 5-day period, with 85% of the dead believed to have had coronavirus. Take a look. A total of 191 bodies were recovered in the Cochabamba metropolitan area alone from July 15 to the 20th, with another 141 collected in La Paz, according to National Police Director Colonel Ivan Rojas. In the country's biggest city, Santa Cruz, authorities recovered 68 bodies. The Santa Cruz metropolitan area is the worst affected by coronavirus in Bolivia and accounts for almost half of the country's more than 60,000 cases. Some 85% of the bodies were positive cases for COVID-19 and cases with COVID symptoms, so they will be recorded as suspected cases, according to Rojas. The rest died of other causes, meaning death from an illness or a violent cause. According to the National Epidemiological Office, the western regions of Cochabamba and La Paz are experiencing a very rapid increase in coronavirus cases. Meanwhile, Indian-administered Kashmir has imposed a strict lockdown for a week as authorities warn of rising coronavirus cases. Numerous states across India, the world's third most infected nation, have reimposed restrictions in recent weeks as case numbers exploded, sparking fears of overwhelmed healthcare systems. Take a look.
This concept is symbolic. A mask is a moderately inexpensive product which almost everyone can afford. So we are not here to distribute masks. We are here to send out a message crisp and clear. That holds great importance. The current pandemic situation is across the globe, and people need to understand how masks will serve the purpose of keeping them safe and their loved ones.
India, which has recorded almost 1.2 million infections and is the world's third most infected nation, had significantly eased a months-long shutdown to revive its shattered economy, but numerous states across the nation of 1.3 billion people have reimposed restrictions in recent weeks as case numbers exploded, sparking fears of overwhelmed healthcare systems. Officials in Kashmir said the Muslim-majority Himalayan Valley, apart from one district, would go into lockdown until July 29, when the restrictions would be reviewed. Agriculture, construction, and the transportation of fuel and other goods is permitted under the order. A similar declaration by the small northeastern state of Manipur was made hours later, with a shutdown to be put in place Thursday afternoon for a week, extendable to 14 days. As coronavirus infections climb in Mumbai, authorities in India's worst-hit city are turning to high-tech smart helmets to speed up screenings and identify suspected cases of the financial capital's densely populated slums. Take a look.
And then with this helmet, we are going door to door and just screening the people. So when it is a mass screening, it can help us to get the suspects soon and get them early treated and decrease the number of cases in the area.
And China launched a rover to Mars today, a journey coinciding with a similar U.S. mission as the powers take their rivalry into deep space. Take a look. The two countries are taking advantage of a period when Earth and Mars are favorably aligned for a short journey with the U.S. spacecraft due to liftoff on July 30. The Chinese mission is named Tianwen-1, Questions to Heaven, a nod to a classical poem that has verses about the cosmos. The mission includes a Mars orbiter, a lander, and a rover that will study the planet's soil. The 5-ton Tianwen-1 will arrive in the red planet's orbit in February 2021 after a 7-month, 55 million kilometer voyage and deploy the rover to Mars 3 months later in May. It's a crowded field. The United Arab Emirates launched a probe on Monday that will orbit Mars once it reaches the red planet. But the race to watch is between the United States and China, which has worked furiously to try and match Washington's supremacy in space. And Japan marked a year to go until the postponed Tokyo 2020 Olympics with a subdued ceremony Thursday as the raging coronavirus pandemic fuels fears about whether the Games will go ahead at all. In Tokyo, which should have been buzzing with thousands of athletes and fans by now, organizers held a ceremony at near-empty National Stadium with the public barred as infections surge in the city. Take a look. The decision in March to delay the Games came as the real scale of the pandemic began to emerge, and countries imposed lockdowns that threw training into chaos and forced the cancellation of qualifiers and test events. Since then, lockdowns have eased in many places, but elsewhere the virus continues to rage, or authorities are warning of a second wave. Tokyo itself recorded a record 366 daily infections on Thursday, with the city's governor asking residents to stay home over a 4-day holiday weekend. Despite the setbacks and downbeat mood, Japanese and Olympic officials have not wavered from the message that the Games will take place, serving as a symbol of the world's recovery from the virus. And here's a visit to the world's oldest shopping mall during the pandemic. Jenny Santiago reports from Milan, Italy.
Buongiorno a tutti. Oggi unisciti con me per esplorare Milano nella nuova normalità, ma prima di uscire mettiamo la mascherina. Sì, arrivo. Siete pronti? Andiamo! Per andare al centro dobbiamo prendere la metro. Sapete, l'Italia era uno dei paesi europei più colpiti dal virus Covid-19 e ora stiamo affrontando la fase 3, la cosiddetta nuova normalità. Le misure di sicurezza e di salute pubblica, come l'allontanamento sociale, l'uso di maschere e il numero limitato nelle riunioni pubbliche, sono ancora attuali. E seguire le misure di sicurezza è la nostra grande responsabilità per fermare la diffusione del virus. Siamo arrivati al centro! Al centro possiamo trovare la Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II. È uno dei centri commerciali più attivi e antichi del mondo e il principale punto di riferimento di Milano. L'Italia prende il nome da Vittorio Emanuele II, il primo re del Regno d'Italia. La galleria contiene rivenditori di lusso che vendono alta moda, gioielli, libri e dipinti, nonché ristoranti e caffetterie. Lo spazio ottagonale centrale è sormontato da una bellissima cupola di vetro. La galleria fu progettata nel 1861 e costruita da Giuseppe Mengoni tra il 1865 e il 1877. Qualcosa di buono da mangiare? Ah, ecco! I panzerotti sono pacchi di pasta fritta, imbottiti ripieni di una varietà, come il pomodoro, la mozzarella originale, la classica ricotta, spinaci e il delizioso salame piccante. I panzerotti vengono cotti al forno, fritti e persino con ripieni dolci. A circa 2-3 euro puoi avere uno dei migliori snack economici della zona.
From EBC, Milan, Italy, I am Jenny Santiago and we live in interesting times. Alla prossima!
Thank you, Jenny. Before we close, we leave you with a word of hope. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. See you again tomorrow evening. Good night. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.